we always get bogged down in all the negatives and the things we don't have. But I've been, and maybe it's just my age. Maybe that's just kind of one of the lovely things about getting older and being in my 50s is a lot of the things I'm doing right now are not about me. They're about trying to express gratitude for the things that I have been given.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Soul Inspire with Joe Borowski. Today, I'm really excited to have with me Dave Semple, who is a musician and the owner of Phoenix Guitar Works. I'm really excited to have you here. So thanks for joining.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, I was excited because right away, one of the things that I noticed with you, and I believe, if I'm right, I think we've done a show together or we were part of something where you were featured in a show at like a house party or show, and then I was another week, or I think one
Yeah,
time.
it was sort of not directly in association with Acoustic Spotlight, but one of the people who goes to Acoustic Spotlight was holding house concerts at her place. And I
Right.
came to see yours, and I think you came to see
Yeah, I
mine.
did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was kind of like we didn't play at the same gig, but we played in the
No.
same area. So yeah, that was really neat. And that was pre-COVID, and
Yeah.
a lot changed after COVID, but it's kind of come back full circle a little bit. Um,
We're getting there.
yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. So I want to dig in deep, man. I want to dig in deep because, again, being a musician myself, it's not often I get to really dig into the questions I want to ask another musician
Right.
or another artist, because I know what I could ask myself. But I'm curious if what it was in your life. Like, was it when you were really young, or was there an event in your life that happened that took you down the path of being in the music industry?
Well, I was a good little church boy when I was growing up, and I grew up in a little mining town up north called Noranda, Quebec. And my parents were members of the United Church, and I sang in a choir. And I remember the very first solo I ever did was Lord of the Dance. And with one verse of it, I was in junior choir, and I loved it. And that really set everything else off. I mean, I picked up, I think that following summer, I picked up my first guitar at a yard sale. It was like $20. And
Nice.
to a kid that was, I think I was like 9 or 10, that was a lot of money. It was my allowance that I'd saved up for like 3, 4 months to buy this. And it was a terrible, terrible guitar. I just didn't know. But it was a guitar. And I took lessons for, probably about 3 weeks. I had a very European, very stern guitar teacher who would make my fingers bleed on this thing, because every time I played a wrong note, he would grab my hand and my finger and rub it on the string and the fret.
Wow.
So after 3 weeks, I was like, Mom, no, please don't send me back. And then I just picked up a chord sheet and just started learning chords and learning strumming patterns and stuff like that. So that's really where it's all started, if you want to go back as far as I can remember. My parents listened to a lot of Roger Whittaker and Joni Mitchell, a lot of folky kind of stuff. And then my sisters, I have two older sisters that are 10 and 12 years older than me, and their musical tastes were a little bit more, I won't say advanced, but more contemporary, shall we say. So there was Fleetwood Mac and ABBA, and the whole disco scene was what my sisters were listening to. And I didn't really like it. I liked the Fleetwood Mac stuff, but the other stuff was okay. And then I found Journey, and I found John Cougar Mellencamp, and I found lots of, I don't know, more raw voices. Like Mellencamp was really raw to me, and I really liked that rawness.
Yeah.
I also listened to a lot of Harry Chapin when I was in high school. I was not your typical, Metallica headbanger high school kind of kid. I liked stories, and the stories were the most important part of any song for me. And I still gravitate towards that, both in my writing but also in my listening. There's a performer from New York called Joe Crookston, who is he's a storyteller, and I just love listening to his stuff because of the stories that he gets into, and he writes about real people. He does a lot of research around different people that he meets and writes songs about them and parts of their experience. And that's sort of what I like to do too, is I like finding a story to tell and then just using the guitar or the piano to tell that story.
Just to recap what you said, it was being in church choir that kind of started you down the path of the
Yeah,
music, which you often hear, right? You hear a lot of
yeah.
people are, when they're little kids, they get thrown to a choir, either at school or church or whatever, and they go, whoa, this is crazy. I get to express myself in a different way, right? What's interesting about your story is there's some similarities to mine. I was young too when I was around 9, 10, 11 when I got my first guitar. It was at a pawn shop. It was a PV electric guitar. It's like a no name, Stratocaster copy. But I remember it was 20 or 30 bucks or 40 bucks maybe. And I thought I just got like the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I like hugged it on my way home. Similar kind of feeling, right? What's different about your story, and this is why I'm actually now excited even more to talk to you, is with my style of writing, I am more of an abstract writer. So
Hmm.
um, I write in a way that when different people listen to it, it can mean something completely different, as opposed to a story, which really gives you the detailed explanation of a song,
Yeah.
or like a storyline or something that's happened, which I've always been fascinated by. I believe both of I don't want to say this, but I believe you're a guitar coach as well, right? Like you've taught
Yep.
guitar. So myself, for years, I've been teaching guitar, vocals, and writing, and it's been really interesting finding the different types of people who are more the abstract type to the songwriter type. So I'm just interested to go down that a bit because
Okay.
you had said that you found it fascinating to hear about stories and all these things, right? What So I get really real with these podcasts, and for me growing up, my writing, I had to get to a place where I would completely turn off everything around me to start writing. And I would just allow my body or my soul to be like a vessel for whatever words were coming through. And I stopped questioning what that meant. And that is what led me to being the musician I am. And it's the only way that I can write correctly. I have written some stories based on personal experiences, like I'll throw it in there. It'll be an
Yeah.
abstract song, but I'll throw little pieces of detail in there. I don't know if over my life I didn't want to be too descriptive. Maybe I was a little more like, hey, I don't want you to know too much about me, or I don't want you to know too much about these people, because then you're telling the story of life. Um,
Right.
so I guess my question to you is, because if you find the story side, the story writing fascinating, can you kind of elaborate more on why that is something that you enjoy, or why do you gravitate to that as opposed to abstract type music?
Well, you just said something that just kind of resonated with me there for a second, was the vulnerability. When you're writing up in an, I guess storytelling takes it away from me. I may not want everybody to know the stuff about me. It's like you said, there's those little things that, do I really want to write about this? Because do I really want people to know this is how I think and how I feel?
Right.
But if I tell it now, to be perfectly honest, sometimes the story is about me. I'm just not going to tell you that it's mine.
Right.
Right? You sort of hide your true identity by saying, well, this is a story about this other guy.
Yeah.
But no, it's really about me. And then you're not as vulnerable. And I'll be very honest with you. My life has been one about trying to seek approval. I don't know if that's why the music thing kind of. I think when I was a kid, I never felt like I fit in, and I think a lot of artists felt as they were growing up there was something about them that just didn't fit in with everybody else at school or everybody else at wherever. And I wanted to be noticed. My young ego, I guess, just wanted someone to pay attention to me. And I don't know where that, well, this is going to be turned into a therapy session or anything, but I don't know where that came from.
No. Yeah.
But but that was the thing that I always sort of wanted. But I wanted to be noticed not for who I was, but for what I did. The who I was too close. I didn't want people to know who that was. But the things that I did, I wanted approbation. I was always looking for approval. And it, I think that that part of things was the scary part about writing abstractly, was when I started to write, and I do every once in a while. There are abstract songs that I write, but I really like the storytelling, simply because it puts it away from me, and maybe puts it maybe in a place where an audience can understand it better because it's not so personal. Maybe sometimes the audience feels they're intruding in your existence when you sing a real angsty, personal, abstract song about how you're feeling on something. So the storytelling was a way for me to engage people on the outside without being too revealing. Do you know what I mean?
I totally get it. Probably what it comes down to is how we're interpreting our own writing styles. So
Oh yeah.
for me, example, when I'm writing abstract, I must have at some point, I'm sure when I was young, I remember the first song I ever wrote, one of the first songs I ever wrote, I was around 11 or 12, and it was called Alone. And I remember my mom looking at me and saying, uh-oh, everyone's going to think this kid's got some problems or something because his first song he wrote is called Alone. So there can be an interpretation of how personal it is to someone. I think somewhere along the lines in the abstract writing that I did, I turned off the like I no longer convinced myself of what you just said, it being that abstract was more personal and more that I'm writing from myself, but it's not Joe. It's not Joe myself. It's from something larger than me, which then allows other people to interpret the writing in their own lives. So like they
Yeah.
hear the song and they go, "Oh my God, it's like he's speaking through me." And that's one of my stage names I used to go by was Soul Vision. I no longer go by that, um, but the reason is because I wanted people to feel and hear my music and be able to apply it to their own life or their own
Mhm.
experience, human experience. So I must have at some point flipped the script of abstract not being personal to me. And
Okay.
that's what you just said. But I totally understand why you said what you said, because I think majority of people would feel that way. That being said, I could even flip it the other way though and say if I were to write more in a storytelling mode, which I have done a few times, here's the odd thing. This is why this is such an interesting conversation. When I write in storytelling mode, I actually feel like that's more personal to me.
Well,
And that isn't that interesting because like I've only done a few of those. And yeah, it like I'll end it and go, could I put this out there? And because I sat with it, I thought about it, I wrote out rhyme schemes, I figured out what I was trying to say, I spent a little more time on it and put it into a storyline, and it's based around this part of my life or this person's life or and how it how I interpret it my own. And then I go, whoa, getting too see, and so I get too involved with that. Where I feel like when I
right.
can do abstract, I can go, what comes out? Okay, done. And it's like I don't have to think too much. So it's just we're looking at it from different lenses, I think.
Well, yeah, and I, 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 I was a high school teacher for 30 years, and I taught the writer's craft course, the grade 12 writer's craft. And in teaching story writing and poetry writing and all that stuff, um, I guess one of the things that I found was you can only write from your own experience. Like, even if you're writing about something that is away from you, you are still writing from your own perspective. So that's, to me, that's the connection that I want to put out is, even when I'm writing in third person or telling a story from someone else's perspective or someone else's story, it really is still my story, but it's just kind of veiled. There's any story that I tell through song, or I've written a couple of novels, I've written way too many poems. But even when I, even when I'm trying to put it away from me, it's really about me. Yeah. And that, I just like the storytelling component, because I guess it feels like armor,
Right.
because I can put that distance between me and this thing. You said, when you wrote alone and your mom was all concerned, maybe. I get the same thing every time I write a song. My wife is the person who is my best, worst critic,
Okay.
because she's honest with me, and you know this as well as anybody. You can sing a song for your best buds that you just wrote, and they'll go, "Oh, Joe, that was great, man. I really loved it." They may not have, but they're your friends. My wife is pretty blunt, and in a really good, no, in a really great way,
Good.
because I can always trust what she says, and she's usually right. But every once in a while, I'll write that piece, and she'll go, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
really dark, or it was really sad, or it was really heavy, or something." And all of a sudden it becomes, even though it's not about me, quotes unquote, it's not about me, she knows it is. And
Right.
she's like,
Right.
are you okay? And I, that's the part that I like about the storytelling part, is if it's not my wife and it's just an audience or someone who's listening to on Spotify or whatever, they may not get that feeling that Dave Semple is this person. And I kind of like that. But it's also
Gotcha.
the fact, I mean, I do theater too. All these different ways of being myself by not being myself. Does that
Right.
make sense?
100%.
Because
Yeah.
when I play, I just last night started doing a series of workshops for actors and directors at London Community Players. And one of the things that I said to them was, every character that you ever play, you know who they are. You have it in you. You have an experience. You have experiences that are so similar to everything that you're going to put on stage. And one of the ladies said she wanted to learn how to get into another character. And I thought about that for a second. And I said, I don't think it's about getting into another character. It's about revealing that part of the character of who you are.
Mm.
It's about, we all, I mean, I have very dark thoughts just like everybody else, and I don't want everybody to know what they are. But when you give me a role to play on stage who's a bad guy, or who says things that Dave Semple wouldn't want people to think I actually think, I can do it through this character in the guise of, oh, it's not really me. The storytelling is the same thing. It's a guise, it's a persona that gets put out there, but it's actually, in a lot of ways, a much more authentic me than if I were to try and just tell you who I was. Do you know?
Right. 100%. Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. So I didn't know you were doing that as well. That's great. That's neat to know that I think I seen some things that you were into acting and you did these theater. I went to an art school. I went to Pearson School for the Arts. We did a lot of
Yes.
acting when we were young, but I was always wanting to be the sound guy. I always wanted to I did a few parts, but at that point in my life, I wasn't ready for the big stage. Now I've played so many shows over the years, it doesn't even phase me, but it's in the beginning, I was pretty shy
Yeah.
and didn't want to be out there, but I totally understand that. It's really neat about you know, going internally in your own way and coming out and showing pieces of you in your acting, right? Like bringing out that side and having almost being given permission to um to act out some of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
feelings. So you're given permission in this one instance where you're like, okay, you're allowed to be that person right now, so go at it,
Yeah.
that's kind of a cool thing, and I've never
It's
really thought about it that way.
it's very freeing, even though, people might look at it as, oh, you're not being yourself. You're putting on airs. You're putting on this character. Nah, well, there are some that do that, but that's not the joy that I get. The joy and the jazz. I'm always jazzed when I walk out of the theater after, whether it's a rehearsal or a performance or whatever. or a workshop. I came out last night just higher than a kite, simply because
Right.
it was about tapping into those, like you said, giving permission to yourself to sort of play in that internal authentic part of you. We're all just walking around personas. In my personal opinion,
Yep.
we're never our authentic selves. We're always trying to put something on for others. The only time we're really authentic is when we're sitting in our you are sitting in your music studio alone. I'm sitting in my music studio alone. That's when we're really who we are,
Right.
because we allow the thoughts, dark, evil, good, happy, whatever. We allow those to come out,
Yep.
whether we're sitting at our pianos or on our guitars, or just sitting typing something on our computer. That's when we're our most authentic. The rest of
100%.
the time, no matter what, like even right now, yeah, I'm putting on a few airs for you because this is a podcast that's going out to the world. I'm not going to tell you all my dark stuff. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm going to give you what I would like to think is my best self to you.
Right.
I'm not a good person 100% of the time. I try to be a little bit better every day, but I want to put on my best me for you and for your audience right now.
Right.
That's sometimes gets in the way of our authenticity. But when we sit down at a piano and we write that song, or we tell that, for me, when I tell that story, that's coming from an authentic place, a really authentic place, because
Yeah.
I'm not putting on airs for people in the story.
I love that. Do you, so one of the questions I was going to ask was, and everyone has different opinions on all these things, but you know, when we speak about music and the effect that music has had in your life, okay,
Yeah.
so do you feel like it's affected you always in a positive way?
No, it is, and I'm every musician, singer, songwriter out there will probably say the same thing in a lot of ways. It is a blessing and a curse.
Right.
The blessing is, I love it. I mean, it has pulled me out of dark times. It has pulled me out of, well, it's been my therapy. We exercise our demons through the lyrics that we write and the things that we say. But it's also that obsession, that the obsessive moment when you're halfway through a song and it's going really well, but you can't get to the next part, and then you lie awake at night, and and the other part of the curse, I guess, we sort of put it in our head where we want to get with our music. I oh God, I wanted to be the rock star when I was in high school. I wanted to be the touring guy, the guy that was doing gigs all the time. And whenever those things didn't happen, I just felt frustrated. Like I would try and seize an opportunity and it wouldn't work out. Or maybe, hey, maybe I'm just not good enough. There's the doubt that goes along every time you pick up and start a new song. Is this going to be the last one I ever write? Will the muse ever come to me again? And that's the curse part, is you get kind of wrapped up in it, and then you'll write the song and then you're like, oh shit, it isn't good enough. It
Yeah.
isn't good enough to put out there. And have I wasted, and you go through that little moment of, I just wasted how many weeks or how many days or how many whatevers writing this thing, and it's or
Right.
and I think it, and that's the curse. And but that's also the thing that well, I'm not a golfer, but I've heard that if you hit one good ball on a round of 18, you'll come back for another round.
Right.
I find that the same way with sometimes with songwriting is, I might write something and it's not the greatest thing, but then you hit that one line in the song and you're like, oh, I love that line. The rest of the song, not so much, but I love that line. You come back. You always come back.
Right.
So to me, it's always this balance of blessing and curse. But it's also, I think it's about your expectations.
Yep.
And everyone's always talking about, oh, you got to dream big. You got to dream big. The problem with dreaming big is when you don't achieve it, you're hurt by it. You see yourself as a failure if you can't achieve that goal. When you And I remember sitting. You introduced the song that the Olympics picked up, and when you did your set at the house party, I
Right.
remember that very vividly because, and you forgive me, but I'm just going to be really honest with you.
Yeah.
I was so jealous. I was so jealous
Yeah.
because I just wanted one. I think we all just want. We all know all it takes is one song for the right person to hear, for them to come and take you under their wing and take you along for the ride. And whenever and I'm terrible. I was a terrible person back then. I'm better now. But I would get jealous of all of the other performers whenever I would see them achieve something. And even just within London, it didn't have to be on a big, huge scale, but just to have recognition within the music community here. And I would be jealous. And it was the wrong headspace to be. So I didn't deserve any more than I got because those expectations were, I was always feeling terrible about myself comparing to other people, not achieving what they were achieving.
Right.
And now, I guess retirement has had a really marvelous effect on me. I'm starting to look at things from a much more, did I deserve it? Yeah, probably not. Did I deserve to achieve? I didn't put the work in. I watch you, you have put so much work into your music teaching business and making Joe Borowski, well, who you are within the community. I have never been able to achieve that because I got so hung up on me instead of on the thing I was doing. And now I'm starting to focus much more on no, you know what? I'm just going to do these things that I like to do, the acting. I don't care if they take me anywhere. I'm just going to enjoy them for what they are instead of for what I had always hoped they would be. And the thing is, I'm finding I'm enjoying it so much more now that pressure, I've taken that pressure off myself. I'm 56. I'm not going on the road. I don't want to go on the road anymore. I don't want to be gigging and driving across the country. I have 4 adult children. I have a wonderful wife. I have a wonderful home. I have a wonderful life. Why would I want to jeopardize that by, oh, I'm going to be gone for the next 6 months on a European tour?
Right.
Nah, you know what? This room, I come and play, and this is where I play, and this is where I write, and this is where I do all the fun stuff. And I
Yeah.
don't get bogged down on, and it's hard. It's hard. We all want that approval. We want to know that what we're doing is worthy of our time, worthy of our talents, and that we are talented. And even though we might believe that about ourselves, we need that acceptance. And when we do and we don't get it, then there's the curse. Right.
Right. There's a few things I want to touch on with that.
Yep.
So, one of the things that I noticed along my journey so far is that when I got out of my own way, that is when good things would happen. That is when the Olympics break happened. That is when, I won a contest and played in front of, however many people, and all these different things that I was having happen in my music career was when I got out of my own way and stopped thinking about the way that I thought the direction was supposed to go.
Mhm.
So, as I think most musicians, whether they want to admit it or not, and we both worked with many of them, I worked with hundreds, probably thousands now, that there's always this feeling of, I need my break. I need that break. Something needs to happen. Like, it's going to happen. There's always this cycle going on in our brains, but that's not why we were given the gift of music. And
Mhm.
so as soon as we can understand that, and we actually just go internally with it and find peace, the way that you mentioned at the end of what you said there, I think there's way more opportunity for good things to happen at that point, because
Absolutely.
then now you're at peace and happy with where you're already at. So it can just get better from there. If you're always thinking you need to be at this level, then you're always comparing yourself to the level that you're currently at.
Hmm.
It's good to always see yourself at the level that you want to be at. And I think that's what kind of starts to reflect that in life. Then you get into the whole power of attraction and all these different things that start to kind of come up that people have talked about over the years. But what happens is our ego and our drive to prove to ourselves how amazing we are gets in the way. And I think that that is the hardest part, and that's what creates jealousy. That's what creates, yeah. And you know, there when that did happen with the Olympics, there was a lot of things I dealt with in life that were not favorable. It's the same. It's the same when you hear someone they win the lottery and they
Yeah.
went, oh, I won $100 million. All of a sudden, they lose everyone in their family. Everyone doesn't
Yeah.
want to talk to them anymore, or they lose all their friends. Or so you got to be mindful of what it is you want. It wasn't terrible. I'm very grateful for what happened with the Olympics. I think it was a really amazing opportunity, and it was one of my I always call it my claim to fame. But my biggest thing in life is I want to just reach people. At
Yeah.
the most people I can reach, even if it's one person, but that one person is reflecting to other people. Um, Once you start to look that way, once you start to look at things that way, then the stress isn't there anymore. And then all of a sudden things start to happen and you go, oh, weird. Now I'm not thinking about it and worrying about it and stressing about it. And now there's these opportunities coming. And we all know this. This is the crazy part. There's always been parts in our life, whether it's music or something else in our life, where maybe we want that job really bad. But the moment we take our mind off of it and then it shows up, or like it's like if we're pushing too hard on the things that we want, but we're saying, oh, I wish I had this thing, I wish I could get this break, I wish I, then that's what will continue to happen. You'll always be wishing you'll have those things. And instead, what I noticed is I would be like, I put all the music and everything into the love of what I do, release it, and say, okay, this is what I was meant to do, and then move on. Like, see it as, okay, this is an achievement, and move on. When I started doing that, that's when I started noticing changes, because what was happening is it was affecting other people. It
Mhm.
wasn't about me anymore. It was about
Mhm.
other people. And so that was a big lesson that I had to learn. Now, that's not to say there isn't some selfish egomaniacs
Oh
up in
no.
Hollywood that have had big breaks, but then you have to say, well, how great is their life? We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their challenges, right?
You know, you touch on something that I don't think a lot of people think through, and it's for every gain in one place, there's a sacrifice somewhere else. And are you willing to sacrifice those things for that gain? And there comes a point in time where you may say, no, I'm not. And I guess maybe that's where I am now. I think the other thing too is I spent a lot of my artistic life, um, and this is, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'll just put it there. Not being grateful. There's a I'm trying right now, and it's working really nicely because I'm feeling really good about it. Is trying to get in touch with gratitude, instead of, we always get bogged down in all the negatives and the things we don't have. But I've been, and maybe it's just my age. Maybe that's just kind of one of the lovely things about getting older and being in my 50s, is a lot of the things I'm doing right now are not about me. They're about trying to express gratitude for the things that I have been given. So I took on, you mentioned the teaching guitar. I had never taught guitar up until a year ago. It always frustrated me, and I always admired people like you, and in high school music teachers. I admired the hell out of them because you hear all these terrible sounds coming out of a grade 9 violin class, and you're like, oh my God, you must drink a lot. But I really admire anyone who had the patience to be able to teach music. I could never do it because I was coming at it from the wrong place. But last year I picked up teaching a seniors class at Hamilton Road Senior Center. And I did it because I wanted to give back. Like, music has been my blessing and my curse and all that stuff, but there's been a lot of blessing there. And I never really thought about, what am I giving back to the world? I was just looking at what the world could give me and acknowledge me. Oh, look at me, look at me. here I am, please someone say that you're worthy. And I never believed it about myself until I started giving it away instead of trying to take. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the gratitude component, it once again, it takes it away from me. You said, we get in our own way. I totally agree. When you are doing something out of gratitude, you're not getting in your way anymore. You are putting yourself out there for others. So this, the thing that I'm doing with London Community Players with the acting and directing, it's a gratitude project. I don't want to get paid for it. I just want to do it because London Community Players gave me my first directing gig. I've been in shows there. They've been really good to me. So I want to be really good back to them. I took, but now it's time to give. Teaching seniors guitar is giving back to them. It's giving back to a community, and I feel so much better about the music and about myself because it's about giving. Not giving in order to get back. Sometimes we do that, right?
Oh, right.
Sometimes we're like, okay, I'm putting this out in the world because I'm giving it to the world. But really, that selfless act is really a selfish act. It's we're still doing it for the, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, when people do that random act of kindness and then post it on social media.
Right. I just paid for $500 worth of groceries to somebody. Oh, it was such a
Yeah.
nice thing that I did for this person. Yeah, and you do question it, like why did you tell everybody about that? It is. I totally agree with that. And there is nothing better than, and it was funny watching you talk about that. And the listeners listening in that are just listening to the audio part of this won't see your reaction there, but anyone looking at the video will see that when you talked about giving selflessly with no expectation, I could just see you beaming from that moment.
Oh,
So
it's
there's a
great.
feeling, and so as long as we can hold on to that, because what will happen, even people when they get to that space, right? They get to that space like, oh, it feels so good. The ego comes in often and will still say, but what are you getting out of it?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
you have to shut that out because that's not us. That's not who we truly are. That is our ego mind coming in and trying to wreck our moment. So the moment when you feel that gratitude and you feel like, okay, this is good, you hold on to that. And if that comes in, you just let it go. You just let it go. I've had those happen. My music school every year is we put an album together, a Christmas album together, and we sell it. We make a bunch of money. And then I play Santa Claus and buy a bunch of toys, and we give toys to kids in need or the children's hospital and
Nice.
things like this. And when I first started doing that, I remember the first couple of years I did that, you know, I'd make all this money, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm making more money doing that than my own albums. And my ego mind would kind of compare and say, well, what's going on? I'm making more money doing this this act of good than selling my own records.
Yeah.
And that started playing with me. And then I would do this and I would give, and then I'd feel like, oh, that's so good. That feels so good to
Hmm.
just give and not expect anything back in return. But it's a continuous work in progress for a lot of people. It doesn't mean people are bad. It's
No.
the ego. It's the feeling of I need to be recognized for my accomplishments, or I need to, like, there's just this feeling that constant. I think that's part of being human,
Yeah.
and probably our evolution of being human as we age and get older is to learn how to be more in a place of gratitude and not always needing that reassurance that we're a good person, because we know we are deep down.
Mm.
We know what we're doing right? So
Yeah.
anyways, I kind of had a similar feeling when you were talking about how you've been giving out these seniors lessons or whatnot. I get that feeling with different things I've done, and I've done gigs where it's for charity. And the interesting part is some of those gigs have been my favorite, and I
Oh,
walked
yeah,
away with next
absolutely.
to nothing, if not anything. So that's incredible. Like, what does that mean? That's when you really got to dig down and say, okay, I got paid all this money for this gig, but then I did this one for nothing or next to nothing, and I enjoyed that one more. You have to really sit with that.
Well, I'm gonna I'm just gonna shift into the whole guitar building thing for just a
Sure.
sec, because I don't know, it's a good segue. Um, One of the things, like I just started doing the guitar stuff because I have all these guitars, and I was being a little tired of taking them into guitar techs to get set up properly and all this stuff, or rewired because there was something, the sound I was looking for. So I started figuring out how to do it myself because I was a cheap SOB and I didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
So I figured, well, okay, I'll figure out how to do it myself. When I am in my shop working on something and I start thinking about the money, how much am I going to charge for this job? I stop enjoying it as much. I love taking people's guitars and making them play as good as I can get them to play. And I still got tons to learn. Like I'm not going to put it out there that, oh, I'm the best guy in town. No, no, no. There's some awesome guys in town. You know, Greg Fraser, Scott Zarek, Phil, and at strings guitar place. There's some really good guys out there, and the younger me would have felt competitive with them.
Hmm.
But now I I'm not. I want to do the things that I enjoy doing for the sake of enjoying doing them. Yes, I charge you for the work that I do because I got to charge. Singing was singing and playing gigs and stuff. It was, you know, we have to respect ourselves as artists and say that, yes, there is a monetary value to what we do in this world, or else the world is going to walk all over us because a lot of the world doesn't want to pay for art. So we do have to put a monetary value on it. But when the monetary value becomes the thing that you are always measuring, it takes away that joy. It takes away that love of the thing that you're doing when you get bogged down in the, oh, I have to make a living at it. And I guess maybe in a lot of ways, I didn't have the drive to do that, because I had responsibilities with I have 4 children. And I think that's, you know, I'm not going to say I settled because I became a high school teacher, but I needed an income to support my family.
Right.
And I couldn't take that financial risk by trying to be a full-time musician, especially when in the back of my mind, in retrospect, I knew I didn't think I was good enough. And that doubt always got in my way, and it just made me angry all the time. I love more than anything when someone brings me a guitar. I had one client bring me a guitar that has sat in his closet, or his dad's closet, sorry, for about 15 years. It was his guitar when he was a teenager. When he moved out, the dad just kind of tucked it away in the house and it sort of disappeared. When his dad passed away, he's in his 50s too now. And he brought me this guitar just to get it, you know, playing again.
Right.
And it was beat up and gungy, and the strings were awful, and there was gunge on the fretboard. And I love those sentimental projects. And when I handed it back to him, when he came to pick it up and I opened the case and he looked at it, he got choked up.
Hmm.
That's better than money.
Oh, 100%.
That is so, but younger me, no, that would never have been the replacement for the cash. It was always about the money. We get so bogged down on the damn dollar sign all the time
Mm-hmm.
that we forget why we do the art. That's not to say our art doesn't have a dollar value. And that's where the struggle comes, right? Where do I find the balancing point between what I'm worth, dollar signs, and what it's worth emotionally?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the songwriting, whether it's doing theater, all of the different creative things that I do, I have no focus on any one of them. They're all just little branches of expression. Even the guitars, you know, I take a lot of creative pride when I'm doing a custom build or when I'm doing a paint job on something to make it an expression of creativity. But when I start thinking about the money, it always brings me down.
Right. I try to be careful in what I'm about to say because I have a lot of musicians I coach,
Yep.
and they have these dreams of being known in the industry, you know, moving to Nashville, getting signed to a record deal, you name it. And some of them will. If I can influence somebody to go in that direction and that is their ultimate dream, then that's amazing if they achieve those dreams. I think with any professional or any profession, as long as achieving that high dream doesn't take away the value of why you started in the first place. So if you become a multi millionaire, you're selling out stadiums. As long as you're walking off the stage at the end of the night and you're not just doing it thinking, great, I made my monthly bill for my $1 billion home.
Yeah.
Then I think you've achieved greatness. Now, that's not to say that I do believe there are some people who make it, who get very high up in the industry and do all these great things in the music industry, and at the same time are very grateful for what they have. In fact, I think
Yeah.
many of them have gotten to that point because of how grateful they are. I think being grateful allows you to achieve these things more than we've talked about it earlier, getting in kind of in your own way.
Yeah.
The idea that you were able to, create this guitar out of, like refinish it, redo it, and you felt that energy exchange, you
Yeah.
probably would have
Yeah.
just been as happy as just feeling that and not even getting paid. In those circumstances, like they're worth more. That's worth more, much more than money. There's no monetary value to that feeling. It's the same feeling I got. I don't know how personal I want to get, but I was doing online shows, and I was doing hundreds and hundreds of these online shows. And I was getting to a point where I wanted to make sure I kept the value of what I was being paid was going up, and getting caught in that world of monetary value for my service. And right when I was in this place of wanting more, needing more, I got a message through someone that was helping me on my journey, management, that there was a message that wanted to be given to me, that years prior to this event, I had sang a song I wrote called Soul Vision. It's actually the opening credits of all my podcasts. And that song, hearing that song, prevented this individual from leaving this world. And
Mission accomplished.
it actually just made the hair on my arms go up saying it, because I haven't mentioned this very often, but I remember at the time hearing it and thinking, oh, that's great. Wow. Thanks for sharing the message. And didn't really take it in. I didn't take it in at its value. And I walked away from it. And that night, I just remember being like, what? Like, how did I do that? I had to really sit with that. I had to really sit with it. And I had to really come to the terms that, oh, my value's more than monetary money. There's more to it. And it humbled me in an extreme way. It still does. So same kind of thing, right? Now, I don't know how dramatic or how I know that was the message that was given to me. I never followed up with that person. They didn't want to. They just wanted that message to be relayed to me. And that's a personal thing. And so I was just completely in this place. And I've had other things like that happen since, but that was the first time where I understood that my music could affect people in a way that was beyond them just paying for me to be their musician for the night to do a fun gig. And so anyway, just sharing.
No, absolutely. Well, I want to go back. My songwriting hero, I mentioned him before, Joe Crookston. There's been a lot of his songs. I won't say that they saved my life, but there's a lot of his songs that really connected with me in a way that made me see the world differently. And I wanted to, and it's weird because, you know, you don't want to be the fanboy who's like, oh, Joe, thank you so much for all you've given me. But I wanted to do something for him. And he has a song called Freddie the Falcon, which he wrote about 18 years ago. And it's about a kid who's in jail he got arrested for cooking meth, but he was a skateboard champ when he was in high school. And the song is about this kid. And when I heard that, because I was a high school teacher, it really connected with me because when I heard that song, I taught over the course of my career probably 4,500 students. But when I heard that song, very specific students started popping into my head. They were my Freddie the Falcons that sat in front of my desk day upon day, year after year, and they, you know, ended up in bad places. That song really resonated with me, and I wanted to give him something. I'm going back to the gratitude component of my new life, as it were. But he plays some slide guitar, and because this new guitar building thing is now in my world, I wanted to use it as my gratitude. So I built a skateboard slide guitar. I got a skateboard deck, the wheels on it, just flipped it around so that the strings could be on the bend, on the down bend side. Put it all together, made a case for it, shipped it off to him, didn't tell him it was coming, anything like that. Just because I wanted to say thank you. And man, oh man, he did an unboxing video and posted it on Instagram. And to watch a man become giddy with excitement as he's doing this unboxing, and he sees this skateboard and he's like, what the, it's a skate, why is this guy sending me this? Turns it over and he sees that it's a slide guitar, and goes over and plugs it in and plays it. And it was like he was 12 again. You know, you hugged your guitar when that first guitar you took home.
Right.
That was what I saw. But, you know, Joe's in his 40s, 50s, I guess. To see someone in their 40s and 50s, bam, become a 12-year-old with that type of excitement at a gift. But he said something really, really important. And you sort of touched on it in your story about this message that came to you, is we put stuff out there into the world hoping it connects with someone. And when it does, it comes back to us in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not monetary. Maybe it's just a message to you. Can you pass on to Joe, that song saved my life? There's just so many ways in which we get back if we can give first.
Right.
And that moment it was just, I guess it was in my guitar building world. It was an awesome moment because it was totally selfless. It was just something I wanted to do for this guy because I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your music. Thank you for writing all the other songs that he's written that I really like too. It would be just so lovely if this world would be just a little bit more grateful with each other.
Right.
And we're all getting so bogged down in all the nastiness and that's happening in the world, and all this inflation that is sucking the lives out of our young people because they don't know how they're going to ever make a living on whatever it is they're making. But if we just approach it from a place, I know I sound like a broken record, a place of gratitude. Be happy with some of the things that you have, and not just happy with them, but share that happiness and say to the people, thank you for doing what you do. You know, Joe, thank you for having me on this podcast. It's been fun. I was a little afraid, I'll be honest, but you know, you're a pretty easygoing guy, easy to talk to. I thought, now this is gonna be so much fun. So, and thank you for putting on this podcast and sharing all these different parts of music and life with your audience.
Well, you're very welcome. I didn't expect the conversation to go in this direction. I never do. And just thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. You've had a lot go on, and I'm even hearing you talking about this slide skateboard, whatever this guitar, like your custom shop. We didn't even get talking about that, but I think that's it's such a cool thing you're doing. I mean, I need some of my guitars fixed, so I might be reaching out to you. I never got into the I'm scared to touch anything. I feel like I'm going to ruin my babies by doing that. So I don't go there. But I definitely need some tune-ups. I've got quite a few guitars that need some work. I do always ask each one of my guests a question. I want to get into the habit of asking this question. And you've said it, I think, throughout the podcast, but to sum it up, why do you believe we're here?
Ooh. Why do I believe we're here? To find out what we have to offer to the rest of the world and then do it. And that process for some people, they know right off the bat what it is they've got to give to the world. I always thought music and performing in one way, shape, or form was always going to be that thing. I knew at a young age I really liked it. I was good at it. I don't know if I was great at it. I don't know if I will ever be great at it, but I was good at it, and it did give me joy. It gave me lots of personal joy. Maybe for the wrong reasons, maybe it was selfish reasons, but I think we're here to figure out what we can give to other people, and let them and help them through it figure out who they are, so that they can offer what they have to other people. And it may not be the same thing as you or me. Maybe their gift is in science. Maybe their gift is in some other area of creativity, or not even, you don't even have to be a creative in order to figure out what you have to give to the rest of the world.
Right.
So I think that's why we're here, is to figure out what that is. And I'm just happy that it has become much more clear to me in my 50s than it ever has been. I'm not beating myself up for my life. I mean, I made some shitty choices, and I've done some not so great things. And I'm sure that there's lots of people out there that'll tell you what an ass I can be. But I'm trying not to be that ass anymore. And I think that comes from I think I finally settled into why I'm here. So it's a great question you ask, that I think I've finally figured out what it is I want to give to people and not take. And I think the not take. I think that's the important thing. Don't take from people. Just give. If you give, something will come back to you, and it'll be what you need. It's maybe not what you want, but what will come back to you is what you need. You got that message from that through your management, and in that moment, it is what you needed to find that new level of understanding what you were doing. Right. I think those are the important, really important moments, and I wish we could learn those when we were younger.
I know,
but we have to go through that angsty phase, right, when we're younger, in order to get to a place where the revelations come.
The second follow-up question, that is a final message or a word of wisdom to anybody out there. You kind of touched on it, though. You kind of went into that. And it's really, because a lot of people might be looking at this and saying, oh, you're a musician, you run your own custom guitar shop, and they may not have that, and they want something like that, or they want to achieve something. And so I always ask people, do you have any words of wisdom, inspiration, anything that can help someone get to where you are, or to achieve things in their life that they're going after?
I'm going to steal yours. Get out of your way. Get out of your own way. When you said that, I'd never really thought about it in those terms before, but when you said it, I was like, yeah, that's it, man. Stay out of your own way. Don't let your ego get in the way of the thing that you were meant to be.
Right. Love it. Love that. And so if people want to look up and see, how do they get in touch with you?
You can look up Phoenix Guitar Works. Phoenix Guitar Works. There you go.
Nice.
Um, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me. Facebook is if you got guitar work that you want to have done or you want to quote or something like that. My music is on Spotify, just Dave Semple. There's 5 albums out there. I will admit, you're hoping that there's 3 really good ones on your 10-song CD. Yeah, okay. Well, you're gonna have. I put them all out there, so they're all out there. If you want to come and see theater, just through Facebook and anything like that. If you need acting coaching or directing coaching or anything like that, I would love to help you out. So yeah, Facebook, Instagram are the best ones for me. I don't do the Snapchat and I don't do all that other stuff. Those are the 2 that I sort of stick to.
Perfect. So Facebook and Instagram, Dave Semple. They look that up.
Yeah, Phoenix Guitar Works in particular for the guitar stuff.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, man. This was awesome. Every single time I do one of these podcasts, at the end of it, if I go, this was better than I expected. It always feels like it's better than expected, which means I think I'm on the right path. So, and
I think you are too.
You're part of that path. So I'm honestly, man, I really appreciate you being here. So